So this is part two of our video series talking about the 23 things that we need to do before we can move back to the UK. As we've previously mentioned, we've been in the US now for 15 years. We're moving back in less than 6 months. There's lots of things to do.
Yeah, if you haven't seen our first episode in this particular series, please check the links below for video number 1 with parts 1 and 2.
Okay, and then we are going to talk about the next two big things that are on our to-do list. Hi, I'm Susie.
Hi, I'm Paul.
Welcome to Here and There with Him and Her. Join us as we continue to talk about all things related to our transatlantic journeys.
So in this video, we're going to talk about the next two things on our list of 23 steps that we've identified that we need to do before we move back to the UK. If you haven't seen the first one, there'll be a link to it below somewhere, won't there?
Yeah, will be.
Yes, sorry, technical support, just checking. So stick with us for number 3 and number 4 of our 23 steps. So the third thing on our list is booking our return flights back to the UK. We wanted to do this using air miles that we'd been collecting for a while. And we wanted to go back in the pointy end of the plane, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've been doing a few flights internally and got to go in the pointy end. And
yes, the pointy front end rather than the pointy back end, I must admit. So yeah, we found the advantages to travelling, paying more to travel, or using our credit card points to make sure that our travel is a little more
comfortable.
Comfortable is the word. Yeah, as we're getting older, we want it to be comfortable. So in our circumstances, booking the flights back comes in at number 3, but in yours it could be completely different because it was something that was important from us to secure, business or first class travel at an earlier period in the planning period.
It's the way it works. We probably will do another video about how we've managed to accumulate all of the air miles in order to do this, because obviously going first class or business is quite expensive. So we had been planning this for quite a long time, haven't we?
Yeah.
And that's why, as Paul said, we had to make sure that we booked our flights using our air miles probably a year ahead, because otherwise the air mile reward flights, as they're called, they get booked up very, very quickly. So you have to kind of be in at the very start of them being becoming available, don't you?
Yeah. Now, a lot of our points were accumulated by taking advantage of credit card company offers with startup offers that were very well there to entice you in. And we fell for one, didn't we? And we
I wouldn't say we planned.
Well, it seemed too good to be true. And when anything seems too good to be true, it usually is. So we were waiting on these points to come through. And because some idiot had not ticked a box somewhere on the application, there was a delay in getting it was Avios points through. And so that meant that we didn't secure the tickets we wanted to. Yeah.
Just for us, we wanted to go first class.
Yeah.
We did it, like I said, we will do another video on the whole credit card scene, because I do think if you're not taking advantage of the credit card scene out in the US, you're missing out on something pretty groovy, actually. So we'll put a little link in for that video at some point. But the key thing is that we felt, because every time we had flown back to the UK, except for bar one time in our whole 15 years here, has really been for a family emergency.
It's been for an emergency.
So either somebody is dying or somebody has died.
Yeah.
Something like that. So we felt we really wanted to go back and make this a celebration flight as opposed to a miserable flight.
Yeah. Something to push the boat out for. Yeah.
And so that's why we planned to do this. And the easiest way was with these air miles.
Plus, I have to admit, the thought of being able to stretch out and sleep properly flying across the Atlantic does take the stress out of things, I would say, in travel, because economy travel seems to be getting more and more closed in on you. and it's just that extra space is, especially for someone who's claustrophobic like you, it's worth paying for.
So I would definitely make sure, if you are thinking of doing like a big journey like this, try and book your flights as early as possible. I would also put in a little caveat there of make sure that you are buying refundable tickets as well. Because we have actually had to change our date. It was kind of going back to our first thing to do with the cat, isn't it? But make sure you get refundable, and you shouldn't have to pay any more for that. There's nothing special about that. But just make sure in the small print that they say they are refundable, that or changeable.
Yeah, because if you're booking from that far out, something's going to happen in the meantime.
Yes.
You might be lucky, and things might just stay smooth for you. But it's worth having it there as a backup, isn't it?
Yeah. I will say one more thing is, though, if you are using air miles, don't expect that you can cover everything with air miles. There is going to be some sort of cash amount that you have to pay for. And that is, depending on the airline, that can be something to do with the fuel surcharges and things like that. So there are going to be some fees that you're going to have to pay. Also, some airlines will charge you for choosing your seat ahead of time. So just be aware that even if you are managing to do all this with air miles, really there is still a bit of a money portion to it. Whether it's large or small, there is going to be that.
Yeah. So the fourth thing on our list would be to create some kind of savings plan to finance your move when you're moving. Even though at this point where we're recording this, we're about 5 to 6 months away from our actual move, we began talking about the logistics and wanting to move back well over a year ago. I'd say getting over 18 months ago now. I'd say so. So it's been a heck of a lot of planning on our side first. Again, based on what we were saying in one of our other videos, is moving here. We intended to move here, but the actual physical move happened a good year earlier than it should have on a emotional decision. So we were determined this time that we were going to put the development work in first to make sure that we weren't going off on an emotional snap decision. So
we had to create a savings plan. That's our number 4 on our list here. So I guess maybe really this should be number 1, but we did this in the order that we really did think about things. And the cats did come first, didn't they?
Yeah.
So we obviously had some savings. We have been putting money away for a while now, taking advantage of good CD rates and all that good stuff. But we had to, I guess, make a more concerted effort to identify what we would need the savings for, rather than just saying, let's just put a big pot of money together, which is what we did when we moved over here. We just kind of put a big pot of money together, didn't we?
Yeah.
We weren't, so we understood.
Well, big-ish. Not like what we're taking back.
Yeah. And the other part of it is that we also came over to the US knowing I had a job to go to.
Yeah.
And that is a different thing for us this time round. We are not going to be going back into work straight away. So we knew that we had to have enough money, obviously, for the flights. But as we said just a moment ago, we used air miles for that. So we kind of had that covered already. We knew we had to pay for the Airbnb. We didn't quite know if we had to pay that up front. And like I said, this is our first time round.
So we needed money there
with
ready.
Airbnb. So we just needed to know that we had the money there, even if we didn't have to pay it all in one go. We needed to pay for the cat to get over.
Yep.
Back to the UK. And then we needed, obviously, to rent a car when we got there. We also needed to make sure that once we were going to be moving into a longer term accommodation situation, that we had the money in place to pay for the rent.
Yeah.
As we said, potentially 6 to 12 months.
Advance. And then to cover the actual rent as well. Yeah.
And then obviously we needed to know that we could afford what we're calling our, what is it we're calling it?
Practice retirement.
So really we were talking about maybe having another 6 to 8 months worth of money set aside, just, without having a salary coming in.
Yeah.
So, potentially, having to go another sort of, we have, 2 months we have in our Airbnb, and then maybe another 6 months after that before we had to worry about any other kind of expenses.
Yeah.
So that's what we had to work out. And as I said,
it's really giving us time when we land to be able to not have to rush into things. We can plan things on the ground, because there's things that we cannot do from here, that we can only do from there, and we don't want to be in a position where we have to take things that we don't want to take just out of necessity. So it gives us breathing room to make better plans at the other end. I think that's a fair way of saying it, isn't it?
Right, yes. And when we moved over here to the US, we were younger. We didn't have as many aches and pains. We really like sleeping now, don't we?
Yes.
A lot more than we used to. It's just that sort of, we understand now that, things just take longer. When you're older, things just take longer, don't they? So what we started to look at really in our savings plan was how we can not just continue with our regular savings, but how can we make more cuts or find more ways to take money away from, unnecessary areas, really.
Yeah, so paring down the things that aren't really necessary for the next, 12 months. Yes. When did we start? About a year, I would say,
about a year ago, I'd say. So it's things that, the first thing we looked at actually was our mobile phones, our cell phones. Yeah. And we will talk about that as well. That is kind of a separate point we're talking about, because that's kind of our form of communications now. So we have later on in the sequence, we'll get to that. But we were spending probably not a crazy amount in comparison to a lot of other families.
Yeah, when we talk to people, we had a very, very good deal.
Right.
But then if you do a little research, you'll find out that out there are, if you're not a big user of videos or watching movies, if you can keep the amount of memory that you use, data, that's the word I'm looking for. You get your data down to a bare minimum, which we never get anywhere near using our data.
So that is
there
true.
are a lot of cheap options out there, and we ended up going with
Mint Mobile.
Mint Mobile.
So again, we'll put a little link down there for you, because we found with our circumstances, we just text each other a couple of times. We ring each other. I'm we're not really that far away from each other that long to worry too much about it.
That's true.
But then also we have to have some specific messaging service for our school,
for our employment.
But really, apart from that, we don't really use our phones for anything too fancy. So we could go with a very standard, basic plan with Mint Mobile.
Yeah.
And what we were spending a month is pretty much what we spend now in a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that change alone, switching to Mint Mobile, and again, we're not being,
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds is not stood here with us.
We have other companies available for this sort of thing, but that saved us nearly $2,000.
Yeah.
Just in that one switch.
Yeah.
And we really haven't noticed any change in our service.
No change in service whatsoever. If anything, it's a little bit better, I would say.
Yeah. Then we looked at other things like our subscriptions, things that are just on automatic auto pay. I know it's a convenient
auto
thing.
renewals.
That's the one, yes. So anything that's on auto renewals, and that's usually, everything just goes straight into that anyway. So start planning backwards. So realizing that things that sort of fell in where we're moving in June. So for us, that meant that we didn't have to auto renew, that we could just pay. So an example of this would be our pet insurance. We pay pet insurance just in case. And so that comes every May. So the fact is that we don't actually have to pay for a whole year. So we didn't have to do a whole year in one lump sum. Again, it may seem like a small amount, but actually that was a couple of hundred there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That saved us. And then if you just then expand that into other things, you could expand that into your life insurance. You could expand that into your car insurance, your home contents insurance. You could look at other things like your Netflix subscriptions and Sirius. We have a Sirius subscription, don't we?
Yeah.
Things like that. All those things that, you can pay in one lump sum for the year, because then you get a discount. But then you don't have to pay for a full year because you're not here the whole year.
Yeah.
And really all of that started to add up into nice sums. And then there were just other things. Obviously, if you get you get your tax back, you just don't spend that, just squirrel that away. If you get a bonus at work, or if you get, because we get little bonuses sometimes for teaching AP classes.
Are we allowed to mention?
Thank you. We are allowed to mention that.
Oh yeah, we are.
It's a statewide thing. So all those things. Just make sure that you now have a very tunnel vision when it comes to saving. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is look at every single thing, just itemize every single thing that that outgoings, and just look at how you can cut that out maybe, or pare that down, or how you can take that subscription or membership or whatever it is.
I mean, this is good advice to anybody, even if they're not going to be moving, because I think people seem to accumulate subscriptions and
and not realize it.
Yeah, not realize it. So yeah, having a good sit down and look at your financials is well worth it.
So that was the third and fourth thing that we need to do before we can go back to the UK. I hope you can see why we split this into a series of videos, because some of them we have to explain a bit more than others. I think the next video we do talk through items 5 to 8, so it's a little bit more. There's a few more things. So please stick with us. As always, give us a thumbs up.
And subscribe.
Let us know in the comments how you're doing with this list so far. Obviously, please pass on any information that you feel would be useful. We can include that in our community.
Absolutely.
We're here just wanting to pull together everything, answer all the questions that we had in sort of one big place.
Yeah.
As you can see, Paul is gasping for another cup of tea.
Tragically, I'm out of tea.
So we're going to have a little break here and make a cup of tea.
I have some biscuits.
Or maybe some cake.
Oh.